Static sites equals great performance with Nuxt.js. So my name is Debbie O'Brien. I am Head of Learning and Developer Advocate at Nuxt.js. I am a contributor to Webpack, a writer for Ultimate Courses, a teacher at Vue School, and I'm the organizer of Mallorca.js and Vue Spain. So you can follow me LinkedIn, Debbie O'Brien, or on Twitter, Debs_O'Brien. Just going to make sure you are seeing my slides, yes? Yep, excellent. I'm also a Cloudinary media developer expert, a Google developer expert, and a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. Okay, today what we're going to do, this is especially for you, Hannes, we are going to get rid of the lamp. We're going to get rid of the mean, and we're going to let the jam take over. I hope you like jam. I love jam. So what I'm going to cover today, basically the new front end, because the new front end has superpowers. We're going to talk about static versus dynamic, a case study. I'm going to show you some performance tips, and there's some useful links at the end on the slides. So what has changed? So basically now everything is pre-rendered at build time. So the things that we build things ahead of time, we send them to a CDN so we can get them quicker to the browsers. And that means sites are served statically, so we don't have to perform any execution at request time on some kind of server. No execution, and all the functionality is client side. Basically, a lot of functionality that was traditionally processed in the backend now takes place in the browser. For example, form validations, we can just call out to a URL to make a payment, for example. And basically, it's all about the APIs. With JAMstack, we access data through APIs. The modern browser environment allows us to build really powerful applications. And there's so many API services. For example, search functionalities like Angolia, payments, for example, Stripe, authentication, we've got like OAuth, and there's so much more. The APIs are just our superheroes, and that's what we use to make the front end so powerful. So what do we gain? So basically, it's improved security because now with static sites, we have a smaller attack vector. It improves performance. We need more performant websites, especially now. I mean, we're all using the internet every second of the day. So we need sites to be as performant as possible. And JAMstack helps us to do this. We have a better developer experience because now as front-end developers, we don't have to have all our code stuck in some Java back-end language application that we don't understand. So we have a much better developer experience with separations of concern. And easy deployment because we're just deploying our front-end part. We're just deploying that JAMstack site. So we could, I would normally say we could even deploy on a plane, but right now we can't even get on a plane. So we can deploy from our own homes because that's where everyone is right now. And that's actually really cool because before we would have had to have the server and be in the office. And now we can just do this from anywhere. So that's kind of like really cool. So what is the definition of static? Lacking in movement, action, or change, especially in an undesirable or uninteresting way. Oops. That's kind of not really good, is it? Now try selling that to your boss. I'm going to build you a static site. It's going to have no movement, no action, and no change. It's going to be very uninteresting. So yeah, that's the problem we have with trying to sell static sites to clients. And that's why I'm going to teach you about Taekwondo. Because with Taekwondo, we have static. We do. This is a static moment in Taekwondo, not a movement, a moment. Because in every time we're doing Taekwondo, we have dynamic, but we also have static. So when you're doing like your patterns, these are the Taekwondo patterns, in a competition or at the end of the class, you actually have to finish in a static movement and you have to wait there and hold that position until you're told that you can now rest. Okay, so that is what I want you to think about when you think about static. Just think about that Taekwondo punch, it's ending, and at that moment, it's static. But there are movements that it's just not possible to end static. So the next movement is dynamic, right? Check that out. I mean, how on earth can that person just stay there in that position? It's just physically not possible. So that dynamic movement needs to end in static, and I'm sure she started in static as well. So basically, she went from static to dynamic to static, static to dynamic to static, you see? And that's basically what we're doing when we're talking about static sites. They're static, they're dynamic, they're static. So again, in Taekwondo, if we're going to do a punch, so this is for you, Hannah, bam. Yeah, so you go like static, dynamic, static, dynamic, static, dynamic. And the same when we do a kick. I love this one. I would normally do this, but I'll probably like hit the computer and break it. So I'm not going to do this. So basically, yeah, you can see it's starting off static, it's going up, it's being dynamic, and it's coming down static. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that static is the new dynamic. And that's what I want you to think about when you're going out and you're selling those static sites. Just tell them it's like Taekwondo. It's static and it's dynamic at the same time. Because like static is like when, you know, you built sites in the 90s, right? And they were really, really, really static and boring. But nowadays, we can do so much more. It's not the same. The static site, it just gets everything from the CDN. It doesn't need to have a server in order to run. They're pre-rendered, they're generated at build time, and then they're just served from a CDN. No server needed, yes. Superpowers. And like, just, you know, to give you another idea, this is what I want you to think. Back to Taekwondo for a second, because Taekwondo is just so much more fun, and I love Taekwondo. And if you can understand how Taekwondo works, you can kind of understand how dynamic works. So in this video, the person starts off in a static position, and then they do like a flying action, and they basically like going up to that CDN, and they're taking down all the information they need while they're building. So basically, when you are, here you go, look at that, bam. So what they're doing, when you're building this site, you're going up to the CDN, you're getting all the data, you're getting all the data from the API, you're getting all the data, you're coming down, and then you have your website. So every time that you change something in your database, for example, you want new data, you're just sending the Taekwondo person up there, getting the new data, coming back down, and then you're sending your site out to the world to see. That's basically all you're doing. So just think, all you need is one Taekwondo person to jump up to the API every now and again, come back down, and ship your website. Simple as that. That's how static sites work. So basically with static sites, all you got to do is push and deploy. It's so simple. We've decoupled the front end away from the back end. So now we don't need any back end people, and every Git push basically just turns into a deploy. We just deploy, we just push and deploy. Obviously, the backend people made all those cool APIs that we're using, right? So we will give them some credit. They did do some really cool things, and that helps us make those really cool websites. But every pull request becomes its own staging environment. So our staging is the same as our production, and it increases confidence when we're building and when we're deploying. So we can deploy anywhere, anytime. And we can even create webhooks on content change. So if we have like our database, we can basically just create a webhook. So every time the data changes in the database, it's then going to generate a new version of the website with that new data. So it's really, really simple because you don't have to worry about it. You just create the webhook and it kind of just does it all for you. Now you might be saying, that's a lot of generation with static sites, right? But you know, relax, take it easy. You don't have to worry about that. Let the generation just take place. Let it just do its job. It doesn't take that long to generate a website, so just don't worry about it. Let it happen. So going Nuxt. Nuxt is not just a static site generator, okay? So we've heard of a few static generators in the past, Hugo, Jekyll, some other, there's a lot of them out there, but Nuxt is actually a progressive Vue.js framework. So when you're using Nuxt, you're actually just building Vue components, Vue code, you're writing in Vue, you're writing your JavaScript, your HTML, your CSS as normal, and you can basically output it as a static site. Now you can also use Nuxt for single page application and for server-side rendering. So it's not just a static site generator. So what are the benefits of Nuxt? With Nuxt, you basically get file-based routing, which is really, really good. What that means is that you just create a component into the pages folder, you put anything in the pages folder, and you've automatically got routing. You don't have to have a router file. Now, I actually created the course on Vue Router. I know how painful it is to basically keep that file going every time you add a new route. If you've got 20 routes, you've got to maintain it, you've got to modify it. With Nuxt, because it's just, we're kind of lazy when we work with Nuxt, it just makes it so easy. You just put the file in pages and bang, you've got file-based routing. We even have automatic code splitting of the routes. So we don't have to code split anything. It's all done for us just by saving the page, the page in the pages folder. Simple as that. Nuxt also gives us prefetching. What that means is Nuxt is very clever, and it's basically going to check your page, see the links, and decide, oh, the user might need that page very soon, so I'm going to go and prefetch it. I'm going to have it ready. So when the user clicks on it, it's bang, it's ready to go. So prefetching is just fantastic other feature of Nuxt, which really, really helps performance. And there's more than 50 modules with Nuxt. So you can have like a progressive web app, you can have Google Analytics, Google Sitemap, and many, many other things. And they're already there waiting for you to help you set up this amazing application in Nuxt. So as I already mentioned, with Nuxt, you can have server-side rendering, you can have single-page application, or you can have a static site. So basically, just to quickly go through the differences, if you're doing server-side rendering, you're rendering everything on a server, so then you need that back-end server, and everything is rendered, just like PHP in those olden days when we used to use that language. It works out pretty much similar to that. Single-page application, everything's on the client side, on the browser, and that's basically great. Single-page applications are great, but they're not very good for search engine optimization, for example. So that's why we end up doing server-side rendering to cover those use cases when you need analytics from, or you need search engine optimization for Google, etc. And then we came up with static sites because we just need more performant websites, and static sites gives us that. So basically with Nuxt, for server-side rendering, you would have a mode called universal. For a single-page application, you have a mode called SPA. And all you have to do in your Nuxt application, if you've already created a Nuxt app and you've got a single page application and you're thinking, I actually would love it to be static, what do I need to do? Change the mode in the Nuxt config and that's it. You change mode SPA to mode universal and you now have a static site. The only thing you have to do is just when you're generating, you put Nuxt generate. Normally you would have had Nuxt build, now you do Nuxt generate and bang, you now have a static site instead of a single page application. So anyone out there who has a Nuxt application in server-side rendering or a single-page application, just try it out today. 2 seconds and you've already generated a static site. So really, really simple. It's just really cool. So a quick case study. Patterson Travel is the site I worked on, and that was completely built with Nuxt. So it is a travel agency website. For example, it has like a blog, events, a case study. There's 3 languages. It has about 144 generated pages, because we generate a page for the blog and a page for every category and a page for every post. And it takes 74 seconds to generate all these pages. So that's kind of not a lot of time to make your user's not going to have to wait to get the content, and the boss just has to wait 74 seconds to see the new data. It's just not that much. With Patterson Travel, just to give you an idea of what it was like, we had 5 layouts. We had 32 page components, 38 components, 8 plugins, 9 modules, and we had 21 pages of docs. We use ViewPress for our documentations. We have actual docs inside of our Nuxt applications. That's kind of pretty cool. Now it's a travel agency website, right? So you're all probably thinking, but hey, what happens when you want to like book something, right? Because we have a booking engine. So you can go in there and you can put your dates in there. And normally you would be able to search for a hotel. Just right now, there's no hotels available in the world. But obviously that's not static, right? Because how can I statically generate every single scenario that user is going to put in, every single date they're going to put in, every hotel, how many children? It's just not possible, right? And we can reserve a hotel, we can search for hotels, we can add a hotel, we can add extra things like t-shirts to the events when we go to. So how do we do that in a static site? So the booking engine is actually a single page application. So now you're going, oh, but I thought you'd built a static site. Now you're telling me I built a single page application. But really what we did was we have a single page application inside a static site. Now, how cool is that? So with Nuxt, we can do that, right? We can build a single page application inside a static site. And that gives us the best of both worlds, because we don't need search engine optimization for those hotel page results, for payment pages, etc. So how do we do that? We do that with the SPA fallback. It's really, really, really simple to do. We basically just use the generate command and we put fallback true and we exclude everything that we don't want generated. So in my case, I built a folder called booking and I put all those pages into that booking folder. Here you could use anything, a regex expression, one single page. In this case, I'm using a folder. And you basically just, every time it comes to those pages, it does not generate it. It knows I'm not going to generate you. And then when it's built, it basically, when it gets those pages, it kind of knows, oh, I'm meant to fall back to single page application for you. And it just works as a single page application. So that's kind of pretty cool, right? So how does it work? Well, basically the site is pre-rendered. So everything is generated at build time. We have all our data that we don't need. So we don't need to make like an API call when we load the page. And then basically hydration kicks in. So that's the process I call when Vue basically takes over, right? So Vue's hydration kicks in, it makes the site then dynamic. It kind of like makes that static HTML not static and boring, because Vue takes over and it's now got in control of that DOM, and it can do all those cool things to make the data reactive, etc. And then the content's up to date. But the API is called on every navigation. So this is how Nuxt works, right? Which is a little bit different if you're thinking of static sites, just like a HTML file. Every time you change the page, it actually goes and to that API and it gets that new data. So what that would look like if you were opening the network tab is like this. So let me just rephrase that. Basically, the first load of the page, it's coming from the static content. But every time I change the page, I'm actually calling the API and I'm actually going and getting that data. So it's kind of like it's not a real static site in a way. It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of static at one point and you click to the next page and then it's not static again, basically. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. But, you know, what if you just want full static? You know, what if I don't want to call the API every time I navigate to a page? You know, I just want to have that data already there. I don't want to navigate all the time and call that API every single time I change the page. Now that's what we call full static. One API call on build time. That means we basically call the payload of navigation instead of the API. So every time we change the page, we're now going to call a payload that has all that content, all that data from the API already stored, and it's not going to have to make any single call to the API at runtime. It makes it during the generate mode. So the static module in Nuxt is coming soon. It's coming very, very soon. I've been able to play around with it and it's absolutely amazing. And just watch out because it's going to be released very, very soon. This is what it looks like. So like I said, it has a payloads folder. Inside that, it has this weird number folder. And then you have a folder for each one of your pages. And then inside it has a payload.json and a payload.js file. This is created for you. This is what the static module does. And then in the network tab, like before we were calling the API in every page change, now we're calling the payload folder. And that is kind of like really cool because it means we have a much better offline support, because now I don't have to make that call to the API because I've already got all the data I need. I'm just calling that folder that I've already generated. I've already got it. It's already split up into the pages that I need. And it means I have much better performance and also much better offline support. So that's really, really cool. Like I said, it's coming very soon. So watch out for the next Nuxt release, which is going to have that. So static sites equals great performance. And this is the basically what we got with Patterson Travel. So we got like 94 for performance and obviously 100 for everything else because we're just amazing, you know. But basically, this is what you should be aiming for, right? You just want those in green. You want to get as good as performance as possible, especially like I said, nowadays we're all stuck at home. We're all using the internet. The internet is just like, you know, we're using it so much these days. It's incredible. So we need our sites as performant as possible. So with Chrome DevTools, this is a Lighthouse audit from Chrome DevTools, and this will tell you what you need to do in order to improve your performance. So if you're not getting those greens, just kind of scroll down and it will actually tell you, and it will even give you links as to where you can find information of how to improve your website. So I'm going to give you a few tips, even just starting with accessibility. So accessibility, semantic HTML, labels for forms, area tags, alt tags, and you're all kind of going, yeah, we know all this, Debbie. This is simple stuff, but how many of you are actually doing it? Seriously? Because it's so easy to forget about it. Even Hannes is smiling there. He's going, yeah, I'm not doing that. So seriously, you know, when you're building your sites, just kind of put that in and keep that in mind and just kind of do it from the start. And we even have like Chrome DevTools for accessibility. So if you've like got, you know, colors as color contrasts, people are not all people are able to see the colors how we can see them, right? So some people have problems with color contrasts, and why are we going to make their lives difficult? We can easily fix it. For example, this one here, it's got AA 5.04, it's got a green tick, so I know that that color is going to be okay. Now if that's in red, you really want to change that. Now, I know your designer loves that gray and just thinks it's absolutely amazing, but just go to the designer and say, if we just tweak that a little bit, you're not even going to notice a difference, but somebody else will. So just keep that in mind and make sure that we're basically delivering better and more accessible websites. When it comes to images, how many people are shipping like massive images up there to the websites? And then it's like taking us so long to, to download it. Naringa was just saying she's on her mobile phone there. She might have to pay for that data to download. So don't make her pay for big, massive images. So I use Cloudinary, and Cloudinary will make your life easier. It is fantastic. You seriously should check it out. And basically, it has some really, really cool things like Q_auto, which basically what it does is it's going to give you the best quality of that photo. So it's going to like optimize it much more for you, and you're going to get the best quality photograph without having to do any work. You don't even have to open Photoshop, nothing. You ship that 6 megabytes photograph up there, and it's going to bring down a much better optimized quality photo. And even the F-Auto, which is the auto format, it's going to deliver the best format for the best browsers. For example, Chrome, it's going to give you a WebP, and those other browsers that don't support WebP, for example, it will give you a JPEG, and it does that automatically for you. So fantastic is Cloudinary. Lazy load your images. Seriously, don't be lazy. We have a feature called loading equals lazy. That's all you have to do to get lazy loaded images. So just do it. PWA, Progressive Web App. Now, this is like one of my favorite features of Nuxt. All we've got to do basically is add the module of the Nuxt.js PWA. We add that into our Nuxt config, and we install it. And the hardest thing we have to do is add an icon.png to the static folder. That's like, it has to be 512 pixels by 512 pixels. Once you add that in, it's then going to create all the other icons for you for the iPad, for the iPhone, etc. Now, if you don't know what a PWA is, Progressive Web App basically means that you can then save that application. So it's going to be like a mobile. You save it onto your home screen, for example, onto your mobile, and then it acts like a mobile. So it's got that that application look and feel when you're scrolling, when you're using it on a phone. And obviously, it gives you better offline support. So when you are having those moments, I would say maybe when you're in a lift and you're going down the lift, because we can go to the supermarket because that's about the only place we can go. We might lose internet in the lift for that 1 second. And if you've got that PWA open, you're not going to lose any of the internet because we're still going to be able to see the site. So PWA is great. It's fantastic. 3 seconds it takes to add it to your Nuxt application. So just do it. For CSS, like just, use CSS Stats and kind of just check out how much your CSS is, because if it's too big, it's going to be a problem and you're going to have bad performance. So keep an eye on that. Modern mode with Nuxt, we have a modern mode. So you just go Nuxt build and add in the -- modern. And what that will do is it will create a modern bundle for browsers such as Chrome, which are much better, and Internet Explorer. It's going to give you all that extra stuff that you need to cover all those cases that, those browsers need. Code split from the start. This is really, really simple, right? To code split, all you've got to do is just use an arrow function with the import. Most of you already know how to do this, but are you actually code splitting from the start? When you're building your application, are you putting the footer in directly as code splitted, or are you then later refactoring everything and then adding the code splitting? Because, why do it later? Just do it from the start. Obviously, don't code split your, header component or your navigation, but the ones that are going to be below the fold, code split them from the start. Lazy load your translations. If you're using Nuxt internationalization, all you've got to do is put lazy true. Oh, so easy. Don't be lazy. Lazy true, simple. Then you're not going to ship your Catalan and your Spanish languages. If you're on the English page, you'll only ship the English. Tailwind and Purge CSS. I absolutely love Tailwind. It is a utilities class framework. So basically, when you're building your CSS, it's utilities first, and it's much, much easier to work with. And then it basically has like a purge CSS. And what that does is it strips away all the CSS you're not using, throws it in the bin, and then that keeps your CSS much lighter. It is fantastic. And you can whitelist some classes that you don't want to be removed, such as like the date picker class. We keep that one in. So Tailwind is amazing. Start using it. Webpack. I hope you all love Webpack. I love Webpack. Webpack gives you a great tool called the Webpack Analyzer. You just put in your build command -a or -- analyzer, and then it will give you this. Now, when we kind of basically analyzed our website and saw this, we had all these languages and we went, whoa, we're shipping in 3 languages, and look at all the languages that we're putting on with Moment. So we were able to see that and change it, and then basically add looks in and see the difference. So it's a great tool of basically seeing what you're shipping and being able to then kind of modify it as you go along, so you're not shipping to production things that you don't need. So basically, JAMstack, do we need it? Hell yeah. I'm taking the fight. And I hope you are, because it is going to be a fight when you go back to your offices or to your virtual world offices and you say to your boss, you know what, I think we need to build static sites from now on. They're much better than single page applications or server-side rendering. And we want you to come on board, or want you to, can we build them? They're probably going to say no, because they're going to go, I don't like static. Just remember and tell them all about Taekwondo and that static is dynamic and JAMstack is the way to go. So seriously, my question for you today is, everyone, are you Nuxt? Because we are. So I hope you all go and make absolutely amazing Nuxt websites. Thank you very much. I really, really look forward to hearing absolutely all the JAMstack and cool Nuxt sites that you're going to build. And basically, pow! Thank you very much. There's some useful links here. I'll share the slides later, and then you'll be able to like play with the Nuxt boilerplate I've created, so you can download it and just kind of like have some fun and play around with Nuxt and all the other cool tools that I mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clap, clap. So Debbie, there is a question from Dylan Beatty.
Oh, wow.
I've not heard of code split before. What it is?
Okay, so code splitting is, it's basically when you're creating different bundles of your code. So before, when we use like what I would call like, say, an ASP application, you would be shipping all the JavaScript all in one file. And what it's doing is it's basically like separating your code into different bundles. So take a home page that has a modal or a login, kind of, you know, something that's going to pop up, a drop down. You don't need the code that's inside that. You don't need that until someone clicks the button. So you can code split that so it only gets sent to the browser when someone makes that action. So for example, on the routing, if you have 10 pages and there's like a loaded JavaScript for the booking engine, for example, that booking engine has a lot of JavaScript. The home page, I don't need to put all that JavaScript onto the home page because I don't need it on the home page. That user might never, ever, ever go to the booking engine. So why should I send all that JavaScript to the home page just in case? So we use that as code splitting, and then it's ready. We can prefetch it. So once the user does go to that page or does open that modal, then they get all that JavaScript.
Mm-hmm. So if everyone has questions, you can raise your hand and ask it loud. And we have another one. Well, Hannes says that he loved your talk and he wants to move to frontend now.
Yay, Hannes! That was my whole dream, was just to change you over. That was the whole aim of this talk.
It said almost.
Well, you just need another 20 minutes to go with that. And Amantas is asking, Nuxt or Gatsby?
Well, Gatsby is absolutely amazing, to be honest, but Nuxt is using Vue and Gatsby is using React. So it really depends on what you want to write your code in. I'm obviously a Vue fan, so therefore I work with Nuxt because that just makes more sense to me because I'm a Vue fan, right? But if I was a React fan, I would probably work with Gatsby. Gatsby is amazing as well. So they're very, very similar, but you're talking about different frameworks, different languages.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's all. So thank you, Debbie, for now.